Now just say that over again, with the same inflections.
This was just a big ooh boy, oh howdy. This was just a big, chunky movie, a big Chef Boyardee chunky beeferoni of a movie.
But you can't check your six. It's kind of like, taking a screwdriver to a gunfight.
What's happening?
Just like on top.
Hello.
All right, finally talking about exit wounds.
Finally, we're here to talk about exit wounds. Welcome back to another
wounds,
wonderful episode of Steven See It All, and we are really gonna see them all, aren't we? This is film number 11, the 2001 movie. Exit Wounds.
Early 2001 is worth pointing out.
Early 2001, Exit Wounds, starring Steven Seagal and DMX, which was an interesting pairing, to say the least, but also, just looking ahead, I don't want to spoil the next episode, but this might be the beginning of an unfortunate trend in casting.
Oh no. Although you say it's interesting, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but it's actually, on my drive over here today, I was picturing in my head, somehow I got on the topic of how this movie came to be, and weirdly enough, it's the one that makes the most sense to me. It's the most movie of all of these movies so far.
Well then, let me try to recap the plot of the film. So it takes place in Detroit, and Steven Seagal,
a very
at the beginning,
Toronto-looking Detroit, but Detroit, yes.
Yes, looks a lot like Canada.
Crazy.
But it is Detroit, he says. And so at the beginning of the movie, Seagal he's a renegade cop who plays by his own rules, but darn it, gets the job done for the 11th time.
Although this time gets the job done like no other. Saves the vice president's life for the opening scene.
So in the previous 10 films, it's been a congressman or a senator. In this movie, it is the vice president of the United States. There is an attempt on the life of the vice president of the United States. His motorcade is intercepted by fake cops and a helicopter.
Hell yeah.
But Steven Seagal goes in guns blazing and a one-man armies his way through, all the gunfire and everything, and he rescues the vice president by throwing him off a bridge into the water.
By throwing a man who cannot swim off a bridge into the water.
Yeah, he says, "I can't swim," and then he throws him, and then he throws the vice president of the United States off a bridge.
Which is kind of its own assassination. He stopped the assassination attempt to do his own assassination attempt.
Yeah, it's just his failed.
It's like if he said, "Get down, Mr. Kennedy." Okay, now time for now. It's
then he literally tells the guy, "Don't worry, I'm a cop."
Yeah, which I want to talk about how that works in the Steven Seagal-averse later, but after I get through the rest of the plot. So he is called into the captain's office and is rightfully reamed out and unrightfully just moved to a different precinct. If this movie had been about how bad cops just get moved around instead of actually punished, this could have been a movie about something. And I thought, is he going to say something about how corrupt cops are treated? Because the rest of the movie is about corrupt cops.
Okay.
It does not say anything profound about corrupt cops.
Okay, and I do...
At all.
That is another thought that I had literally on the car ride over here. It's very strange. It is both, like I was saying, the movie that most knows what itself is. This movie knows exactly what it is more than any other. What it attempts to do, it sets out to do, and it achieves, I think, perhaps the best of the movies we've seen so far. But also, I can't explain it. This is going to sound like some Zach BS that you just want to ignore, which is fair. You can. But while knowing the most what it is and pulling off what it is the best, it also is by far has the greatest incongruity between stated themes and depicted themes. The message, the theme, the moral, everything of this movie. This is probably the worst case of it wants to say this and it does this.
Yeah. And so Steven Seagal, I'm not even going to attempt
Maverick Cop Orrin Boyd.
Okay, sure.
So we've talked about this before. John Hatcher, I will remember till I die. Oren Boyd was out of my mind, like, before they even finished saying his name. That is the least memorable name so far, I think.
Yeah. So he gets moved to the 15th precinct of Detroit, which apparently has a reputation for being the worst precinct. Like, when he arrives, he just sees cops casually beating suspects on the sidewalk. Like, it's...
Which is not at all different from what he does, but...
Yeah. But he like looks upon them, his fellow cops, with disdain. So then he discovers that there is a group of undercover cops who are like undercover with like these drug gangs and stuff, who started out undercover, but apparently are like actually working for... They're actually drug dealers. Like, they stopped being undercover, and now they're undercover as cops, but they're actually drug dealers. And what they do is they steal drugs from like the evidence locker, and then they sell that, and they come up with like this complicated system for smuggling heroin through and out of the country. And it seems to be that like the kingpin of all this stuff is DMX. I don't know what his character's name was. Latrell Walker.
Well, because he has two names.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he has two names even within the movie.
Right, because he is Leon Rollins and Latrell Walker.
Yeah, so the movie at first appears to be Steven Seagal trying to take down this ring of dirty cops selling drugs under the command of DMX. But then it turns out that DMX, like the twist of the movie near the end, kind of like right before the climax, is that DMX is actually like a double secret, like vigilante.
He's a .com billionaire, sure.
Yeah, he's a .com billionaire who is also like a secret vigilante trying to take down the dirty cops. Like, he knows that the cops are dirty, and he's trying to collect evidence to put them away. But he's doing it extrajudiciously. Like, you could not submit any of the evidence that he gathers.
No, he's trying to prove cops are dirty by buying heroin from the cops.
Yeah, he is a drug dealer, like,
or whatever. I don't even remember what was heroin. The drug. I don't remember. What
it was heroin.
Like, I don't think he actually does drug dealing. He's like setting up the. Oh, actually, no, you're right. No, they definitely take part. Like, he's definitely like take part in like some real deals.
He brings the money to the meat.
To be fair,
half the money.
To DMX's point, to whatever his character's name is, to his point, he does specifically say, like, I'm gonna try to turn this in. If it accomplishes nothing, like, I'm gonna just like put it on the internet and get like public outcry about it. Like, he does address the fact that this probably isn't gonna work within the system.
Yeah.
So he does, and it kind of ends up. This is a thing we've seen more and more recently. This was, a bit early for its time. This is very early internet, but like civilian filmed interactions of police brutality. Like,
it is actually a thing. I think that's like the best, as a social message. I think that's like the best part of the whole thing, at least the most like prescient part of the whole thing. But then, of course, at the end of the movie, it has to turn into a shootout, which actually there's some pretty cool moments in the shootout that I want to talk about. The climax isn't that bad. I think it's actually, there's some moments, and it has sort of the problem that early Seagal movie where he like shotgunned that guy's leg off.
Yes.
He was looking for Ricky. Out for Justice. Yeah. I think this falls into like as far as the action goes, like the same kind of problem as Out for Justice. Like, there are some really fun action scenes and like action moments, but just as a whole, it doesn't really.
It also has a whole bunch of new problems compared to the action.
It has a whole bunch of new problems. And okay.
I actually had a lot of fun with this one. I was having a good time.
I had not a bad time. It wasn't a bad time watching this movie.
The music was really good. They had like actually pretty decent score with this one. The sound effects were just off the wall absurd. Weirdly, choreography not terrible compared to previous ones. Like, if you look at it's not great. But if you look at like the knife fights in Under Siege that are just god awful, and you compare that to the fight scenes in this one, it's pretty solid.
I would agree with you for all of the fisticuffs, which do not include Seagal, because Seagal had to make himself so over the top awesome at fighting. Like, he pulls off some like Matrix moves in this.
There were a couple like jump off from the ground without using your hands kind of deal.
That
Yeah,
moment,
he
I think
like
we're probably
does
thinking
a
about the exact
sideways
same
cartwheel,
moments.
catches himself on the ground with his left arm, and just with the strength of his left arm, pushes himself
that doesn't
back
even
up.
touch. That doesn't even touch the most crazy part. That he like kind of like you said, he just like jukes it to the left, cartwheels, and with both of his legs kicks the guy he's fighting. Like
Yeah.
But the problem is, it's very much like it's like the Liam Neeson in Taken 3 climbing over the fence scene, where this is achieved with 15 cuts.
Oh, and
Where he like jumps, kicks out
just
with both legs, pushes himself back, like just
the
kind
use
of
of
on
a stunt
perfect
double is
pivot.
egregious in this film. Like, it is very obviously a stunt double. It's not even like the same build
Yep.
as Steven Seagal.
Well, for me, I feel like that's what you should notice. It's probably what most people notice, is that this is a whole other person. For me, the thing that I notice is that he like is like pushing himself back up on like a perfect rotation with one hand, but when they cut back to Seagal, he is doing that thing where he refuses to move his arms like from his sides. Like they do not move more than 10 feet, like not 10 feet, more than 10 degrees from his body. So when they show him doing a crazy stunt like this, that's the problem, is that then you can tell when you go back to Seagal because his arms like do not move.
Stuck to his sides.
So it makes it, that's what made it super obvious to me every time it happened.
The biggest thing that made me laugh at this movie was that every single part of the movie, like the entire story, if you strip away everything else and you just look at the story of this movie, Seagal could have been removed from the equation, and a lot fewer people would have died. There would have been a lot less property damage, and pretty much all of these police operations, the legitimate police operations, would have gone on like without a hitch.
Also,
And we're like, on all the
Seagal
cops would have
only
been caught.
interrupted the process of all of the plans.
also the movie would make so much more sense.
Yeah,
all of the dirty cops would have been caught had Seagal been there or not. Like, he actually didn't help.
no, his character does not play an integral role in the slightest to the overarching story of this movie, which is, I don't know, I just thought that was really, really funny.
Yep.
Well, okay, let's just talk about like the character of Oren Boyd here, because I think there are some like fundamental issues with the characterization of Oren Boyd.
Okay.
As there are fundamental issues with the characterization of every Steven Seagal character we've seen here.
Right.
But I found this one particularly dissonant because the writing of the character played right into, I think, every single one of Seagal's weaknesses as an actor.
Interesting.
Like,
Elaborate.
at the beginning of the movie, so let me explain.
Let me.
So at the beginning of the movie, he goes off and like does his crazy, action scene where he saves the vice president of the United States because he's an action star. He has to do something crazy like that. And that's how we're introduced to his character. And the whole time he has that like cold, collected look on his face the entire time because that's just what he thinks cool guys do.
Yeah, but the like squinting, and then I even had in my notes that if in that opening scene especially, he's continuously closing his eyes while shooting his pistol, like flinching, even though
And he does the weird reload thing where he like sticks his arm up in the air.
And I don't understand
Like he has
because
to show the crowd his gun that like he knows how to reload a pistol.
whatever they're using is they're obviously not live rounds, and even if they are, even if they're blanks. Like, the guy's still, like, wincing every time he shoots his pistol. Anyway, continue.
But anyway. So, like, he gets called into the captain's office, and he gets moved to, like, the most difficult and horrible precinct in Detroit, and he has to go to a support group for anger issues. Which... he has not been characterized as having anger issues. His problem isn't anger. Like, he doesn't fly off the handle and do crazy stuff. Like, he was calm, cool, and collected that entire time. His problem is insubordination, that he refuses to follow anyone's orders and he doesn't play along with the team, that he just, like, does his own thing.
Yeah.
Why is he being sent to anger management classes? There's even, like, a scene in his first time in the anger management class when he's asked to stand up and he gets, like, caught in the desk a little bit. And, like, he's supposed to, like, the writing of the scene, what he's supposed to do is, like, he gets annoyed that he can't get out of the desk very easily. He's supposed to, like, flip out and tear the desk apart. But he is so devoid of any extremities of emotion that he just kind of, like, with a bored affect about him, just kind of, like, casually tears the desk apart.
For an adult, like,
and
stuck
tosses
in a
it away.
children's desk is very calm about it.
Yeah, he was, like, really chill about the whole thing. And so they keep, like, the text of the film, like the actual spoken dialogue, tells you several times throughout the movie this guy has anger issues and he can't control his emotions. But the way it's shot and the way it's directed and the way it's acted tells you the exact opposite. That actually he is like an unfeeling monster.
I mean, and even the scene immediately after that, whenever, again, this is kind of our first characters saying how cool Seagal is. Which, okay, yeah. I do need to say, actually, at this time, it kind of works because it is all of these like middle-aged men in the anger management class that are like, oh, this guy's so cool, he knows like kung fu. That actually is Seagal's target audience, is just like dudes, like
just like some dads,
like dads with anger issues that live in Detroit,
who live vicariously through his
specifically
movies.
Tom Arnold. Like that, I could actually believe them being like, oh, this dude's so cool, he knows like kung fu and stuff, look at him, he beat them up.
He just beat up like 6 guys.
But like, even in that scene...
He did, like, a flip like the Matrix.
Even in that scene, he's driving, like, his truck. He parks it. He comes out. There are people, like, trying to, like, carjack him, like, trying to steal the truck.
And he says the greatest line of the entire movie.
Yes.
As he sees people trying to break into his truck, he goes, what am I, a magnet?
But he just kind of, like... and says that, but, like, again... He's not flipping out. What are you doing?
No, he does not have anger issues.
Okay, now I got to deal with this, I guess. But he
in fact, his problem is that he has no emotional investment in anything that goes on around him.
No, and truly, it is. Oh, cops are. Me and all the other cops are abusing people of the streets. Okay, sure, whatever. Then later on in the movie, okay, we're against like cops abusing people in the streets. Okay, sure, whatever. Like he just has both zero buy-in and 100% buy-in with whatever cause he's currently on.
He's just down for whatever, but he's not. Don't expect him to be enthusiastic.
He's just doing something. That's it. He's not engaged in something. He's not working towards something. He's just always doing something.
Yeah, and it's. I want any. Okay, what I want for Christmas is to see Steven Seagal express an emotion. Just like get. I want to see him overwhelmed with some emotion, positive, negative. I don't care.
Although literally anything that isn't like the half closed eyes with the smirk.
Yeah.
Although
I want to see him emote.
The closest he has come so far to like.
This is the closest.
Is
he
it?
has come so far. When he's tearing apart the desk, his face does look a little bit annoyed.
Well, I would also say for me specifically, it's that this is like. For an action movie, like for the main character, this is basically a requirement, is that like, you know, they make some kind of pithy remark or they make like, you know, a sarcastic quip or joke or whatever. And this is, and most times we've talked about this, like they're like, this I think happened to all of us at some point, like we just literally didn't even realize he was trying to make a joke because he just said something and you're like, what? And then like you learn later it's a joke. This is the only time where it actually kind of seems like this guy can act like he has a sense of humor. Like he can kind of be in on the joke. There are sometimes, not that it works, not that I'm like, oh, I'm charmed, so humorous but endearing. But there are times where I'm like, okay, it actually seems like he could have a sense of humor. In every other movie, he seems like a just completely humorless, like just slab of
like
with the most annoying
has...
smirk possible. This time the smirk is slightly less annoying.
And when he has like banter with the other cops, like most of the other cops hate him for like no reason. Like everyone is just kind of like angry at each other, and like he gets to the new precinct and they just like immediately don't like him. But that's kind of the character of Orrin Boyd. He's supposed to be like, he's written as having anger issues. He does not have anger issues. Just that's not how it. Nothing in the movie would tell you that other than the dialogue. It was very much a tell don't show. In fact, it was a tell and show the opposite.
And that, and kind of similar to this, like I mentioned briefly earlier, where this movie is very confident in what it is as a movie, but in terms of like the theme of the movie, I feel like it is completely like it just makes absolutely no sense. It has no attempt to even try to rationalize it. It is ostensibly a movie that is advocating against police brutality.
Yes.
But it makes absolutely no sense with the character that they've chosen.
No.
If he started off the movie as a police who is brutal and like abuses suspects and citizens with like no repercussions, like you said at the beginning, he just gets transferred around. If he kind of learned a lesson towards the end, if he had growth and arc, like that's fine. He doesn't have to start off perfect. That does not happen. Is it okay if I jump to the end, like just to touch on this?
Well, I just want to make one short comment about like the scene where he first arrives at the 15th precinct. When he like arrives at the building like I said, there were like I think 2 or 3 cops out on the sidewalk in front of the precinct, just like beating a suspect on the sidewalk out, and it's the noon. It's like lunchtime.
It's the beat hour,
and he just
every hour.
walks by that, like just looks at it. It's like, oh, this stuff, okay, and like walks into the building, doesn't say anything about it, and then goes into the building, and then the first woman he meets, he like demeans and belittles. Turns out she's like the captain of this precinct. Which, how did he not know that before he showed up? But it's just he participates in those things. It seems that like the text of the film is that the only bad cops, like the only cops who like really deserve any sort of comeuppance or justice or anything like that, are the ones who are like actively committing blatant crimes,
drug trafficking,
like drug trafficking,
like multi-million-dollar drug trafficking, and and also an armed robbery with fatalities of vaults to get the money for the drugs. Yeah. But
at the end of the movie, go for it.
To your point, and even more, so he goes to the police station. Not just he witnesses this, and he's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. They even mention there, like, you were transferred. Okay, so you had this thing with the vice president. Oh, we need to go back and talk about that real quick. That's just a fun little factoid. Yeah, this thing with the vice president, but also I think they said 3 counts of brutality, like of complaints on your record. So he, like you said, he partakes. But the most confusing moment, and this is another one that just it could be so easy with like a slight change, it would make sense. He's spying on DMX. He's spying on Leon / Latrell. Which, first of all, throughout the entire movie, it is so funny because, like, his detective work is even worse here than usual. When he's just like, oh, they're doing a robbery. And they're like, okay, the guy's about 6 foot. And he goes, and he's black. And the way he says black is just gross. Like, black. It's disgusting. But then he literally goes to a person. He's like, hey, I want to look up just, like, all the records of, like, every person in the city. And they're like, okay, what do you have? And he goes, a 6 foot black guy named Latrell. And I'm like, do you really think that is enough to find your suspect?
It's Detroit?
You're in Detroit and you have a black guy named Latrell. That is all you have. You are just looking to profile like literally like an entire community. Anyway. But he's spying on Latrell.
And they like find him. I don't know.
Wait, what was that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
He does eventually, like he hires a private investigator basically to like find him.
Yeah, I have some.
There's a private investigator.
That's a whole other thing.
Third greatest character. But jumping ahead to the end, the part that just baffles me the most about this entire movie is he catches up to DMX, they have a little fight, and then DMX is like, okay, you've kind of seen me coming in and out of my hideout. Let me show you what's going on in here. Because Steven Seagal sees him going in and out of this hideout. He assumes, okay, this is like, his drug trafficking, like, center of operations. But it turns out it is a .com billionaire center of operations for monitoring, like civilian monitoring of police. They have like, recordings of like all these interactions happening. This is what they're going to use to blow the whole cover off. But like literally like this guy has multiple counts of police brutality on his record. Like literally one of the people there currently is watching a video of Steven Seagal like beating up the one dude working on this project. The guy from Transformers. I can't remember
the one who ate the whole plate.
Yeah. He ate all the donuts to show he's innocent. That's a great
Anthony Anderson.
But like he's bringing Seagal into this operation. DMX is like, let me show you, and he shows him all this stuff, like risking blowing the entire cover of this operation. And he's like, you win. There is absolutely no reason to trust this man. No, all you have done is see this guy pursue you and like use extra like supposedly off limits, very clearly accepted both in the movie and in the real world techniques to like harass and like accuse you of crimes that you kind of aren't doing. But like you saw him like handcuff and like beat your friend. You have video of him handcuff and beating your friend. Again, this is the problem that just doesn't make sense in the movie. It's against police brutality, but has a character that does police brutality and like doesn't ever really stop, but they just kind of bring him in and they accept him and he's like, now he's cool with stopping it. Yeah. And I think the slight change would just be if instead of having a fight outside and then just saying, okay, you know what, let me show you, if he just kind of broke his way in. If he saw DMX go into his little hideout and Seagal like followed him in, broke in, like, forced his way in some way and then saw what was really happening, you could see, oh, you're not a drug trafficker, you're trying to uncover this. Okay,
I've completely misread this entire situation.
I've completely misread this. Okay, you know what? You got me. I'd like to help
I
out
have
in
made a
any way I
mistake
can.
and must grow as a character.
That would make sense. And I'm even fine with like a 5-second character change. I just don't understand. He has not even through movie logic. There is no logic to explain why DMX, other than it literally just feels like they get to the, okay, it's the part of the movie. We're both on the poster. It's the time in the movie when we team up. There's no other reason to trust this guy because this guy is not to the same degree, but doing the same things of the people you're trying to stop. He is one of the people you are filming to try to like stop because he has multiple counts of police brutality on his record.
Yeah.
Like unless I miss something.
I wanna ask a bigger question.
Okay.
Why is DMX in this movie?
Okay, no, wrong. Okay.
Please explain to me how I'm wrong.
I
want to be wrong.
Let me explain my theory.
Save me.
Because of when this movie came out. That's what I was thinking about when I was thinking about this
early
movie.
2001.
This movie is very of its time. The way I imagine this was happening, the way I imagine this happened is a lot of both the like subject matter and the techniques of the movie feel like what nowadays you would say are like chasing algorithmic trends. Like they want to be surfaced by the algorithm. This is before like algorithmic content was a thing. So it's more just like chasing trends. That's early 2000s. It's kind of like hip hop has now reached.
Oh, it's broken into the mainstream.
It's reached like suburban culture. Like white kids are listening to hip hop. Like
I was in 2001. I was a white kid living in the Midwest. I had heard of DMX. Like
right.
You were hearing hip hop music on the radio in rural Missouri. Like it was a thing. So
this movie. So I picture that Warner Brothers is like, okay, we have one more movie with Seagal on our contracts. That like this contract that we have with him. We have like one more movie for him. And they're just like, what trends are out there? It's, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came out around this time, I believe.
He cannot do that.
He can't do that. But they're like, okay, wire fu martial arts movies. That's a very early 2000s thing. Like, Matrix happened. Yeah. We're still in this, like, wire fu phase of movie making. Yeah. Just, like, action thriller with, like, an action leading man who is...
Let me just say, as far as action scenes go, he may be an Aikido master. He is no Michelle Yeoh.
Absolutely not.
There's no way.
And also, we want this, like, hip-hop infused movie. Like, this is the era when, like, Nintendo is advertising their handhelds with, like, a graffiti tag, like, aesthetic. Like, that just
Everything is extreme!
That just was the aesthetic of the time. So I think probably what happened is DMX is like, okay, I got this music career going on. You see a lot of, like, rappers, especially in the 2000s, they, like, transition into acting. Like, you see Ice Cube and 50 Cent move into acting. So he's kind of like, okay, where can I get me into a movie? And they're basically just like, well... if you'll star alongside Seagal, Warner Brothers will fund it. They're looking to, like, reach a different audience with, like, a hip-hop infused wire fu movie. So, and they're like, and sure, DMX can look like a tough guy. X gonna give it to you.
Yeah, he gets into a fight with Steven Seagal and doesn't lose that fight.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, actually, I feel like Seagal loses more fights in this one than usual.
Or
at least looks like loses for the first bit and then maybe eventually overcomes it. But...
But he seems to have a harder time in these fights than in previous movies.
That's how I see this movie come about. It actually makes a lot of sense to me that it's like a Seagal DMX joint.
I was just thinking of this from the perspective that DMX doesn't deserve this.
No.
He doesn't deserve to have this happen to him.
But I will actually say, so I'm watching the movie. You have like the whole intro to Seagal and everything. I love the first scene that DMX shows up to. He just, like, pulls up in his car. He gets out. It's playing a DMX song. He pulls up in his car. He gets out in this, like, gray, like, turtleneck sweater. And instantly, 2 seconds on screen, he looks cooler than Seagal has in the last, like, 11 movies.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this dude rolls up, and I'm just like, this is just a different caliber of on-screen charisma. It's not even close. And then it's even better, because then later on in the movie, they have Seagal standing next to DMX, and DMX is very obviously cooler. Then they have Seagal get into a fist fight with Michael Jai White, and it is just it is like seeing a tadpole against a great white shark. Like within their fight starts, Michael Jai White does this like jump like split kick, and you can tell within the first like 2 seconds, like they are in completely different classes of action choreography, like skill, achievement, everything.
Which
he is outclassed instantly.
So let me go back to like your theory about how this movie got made and do the exact opposite.
It's not a theory, it's the truth, but go ahead.
I think it is also possible, and I think this would explain some of the writing issues that have to do with this movie. Like, they had this movie written, but it wasn't cast yet, except for maybe DMX. Like, him being DMX actually, like, fits into a lot of how the movie goes. Yeah. Like, coming into the theater and, like, recognizing him and his ability to just be, like, cool on screen is kind of important, actually, to the plot of the movie. But Steven Seagal being the other lead actor doesn't really make sense. I think when it was written, the writers didn't think Steven Seagal would be in this movie. Like, that wasn't really a possibility. I think Seagal is horribly cast in this. Like, it accentuates his weaknesses as an actor. And so I think it was going to be DMX and somebody else originally. And they just had to resort. I mean, I don't know to getting Steven Seagal.
That necessarily disagrees with my theory, because that could still be the same. We want to make,
I think those could,
an action
both
thriller, hip hop, like wire fu movie, and then Warner Brothers is like, well, we have Seagal for contractually for one more movie, so like.
And someone was like, "Do we have to?
Like, I really have to being the way that it worked out."
Yeah, I think I think that's kind of how it went.
That they're like, okay, we'll get a $30 million budget if Seagal's in it, I guess.
Hey, did you know that Michael Jai White was in an uncredited role in On Deadly Ground?
Really?
He actually, I think he shows up in more than one. I think he's in a few earlier. I think I remember seeing his name as like kind of back. This is the first time he is there, like as like Michael Jai White is in this. He has been in other movies. I think in kind of smaller background stunt things.
In other Seagal movies, though?
I think so.
Huh.
Hold on.
We'll get into where all these actors have been later, and also how in the world the Super Mario Brothers movie fits into this. Because it always does.
One thing that I noticed, he's
key.
missing the ponytail in this one, which
he doesn't have a ponytail in this one.
Reprieve.
This is a ponytailless movie.
His hairline, though, in the front of his hairline is extraordinarily pointy, like unnaturally, like just might as well be an Avatar arrow on top of his head. It was very odd. I don't know why it stuck out to me so much more in this one than it did in the previous ones, but it's really front and center.
But I think in a few notable ways, this is like the best, in scare quotes, Seagal has looked in one of these movies. Like, he's a bit slimmed down. He doesn't have the ponytail, like it's gone. He doesn't have as garish, outrageous outfits as he's trying to wear in the past. Like, this is some of the most accessible Seagal we've had.
And I think he's trying here more than in the last few movies. I would agree.
Movies. I do think he is trying more.
I think he's failing, but he's trying.
The way I read it is that he had some success with Under Siege, got a little big, big for his britches, went to his head. Mm-hmm. He had a couple box office failures, and I think he went the straight to like video route. And they're like, okay, this is your chance at a comeback. Like, you gotta try. Yeah. And I think it did. I think it did actually. This was one of the better box office returns of his movies.
Yeah, it had a budget of $30 million. I think it made $80 million in the box office.
Okay, like pretty decent.
So it made more than twice its budget back. Like almost 3 times its budget back. Which, if small budget, I mean, nowadays $80 million is nothing. You can't even make a movie for $80 million. But at the time, and for a Seagal movie, I would say that's not bad.
Yeah, no, I think this is also like, so our appreciation and appreciation of these movies, like the lens that we have viewed these movies through is like so weird, messed up. I think if you don't have a weird podcaster film bro, like postmodern like viewing of these movies, this is probably like the best since like Under Siege. This is for the most just like dude who wants to sit on the couch and watch a Seagal movie. You're probably still best off with Under Siege. Yeah. If you want a different flavor, if you want something a little more fun, I think this is like the next quote unquote like good Seagal movie.
I think this is having, so you can see, okay, let's compare it to Under Siege, because I think that's a fair comparison. As far as like the filmmaking quality goes, I think it's the fairest comparison amongst Seagal movies so far. So just comparing it to Under Siege,
the two that most just like feel like a movie.
Yeah. Like, so I think like a lot of the characters, or like the actors in Under Siege, were having a fun time. Like Gary Busey, it just looks like he's having a great time.
He really did.
like what was it? Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones. He's having a great time.
He was having a blast, except for when he has to act against Seagal. Like, then it just all the joy in the room just dies. But when he's by himself and he just gets to like monologue and get crazy, like he seems like he's having a fun time.
I literally love that they just gave him like an AM radio talk show host like dialogue for like half of this.
Well, it was great. And then this movie, I think quite a few of the actors look like they're having a good time. Okay. Like even Seagal gets like a bit more of he gets a bit more emotive in this one. Like I keep going back to the moment where he's like tearing apart the desk. Bit. It's like the closest he gets to being emotional on screen. And so for me, I mean, I didn't like this movie. I didn't think it was very good. I would probably rather watch Under Siege again than watch Exit Wounds again.
I think it could depend on the day for me.
Or yeah, probably depends on what mood I'm in. Because I think what I'm getting to basically is that I think Exit Wounds is a more fun movie.
Yes, absolutely.
Than Under Siege. I don't think it's like quite as good, but like it's more fun. Like it's trying to just have fun. Under Siege isn't really trying to have fun. It has fun moments, but it's not trying to be like a fun movie to watch. It's trying to be like an action, drama with some comedic moments. This has much more of like an almost action comedy.
Yeah.
Feel to it for me.
I mean, even literally just with Anthony Anderson and Tom Arnold alone, like the fact that literally when you get to the credits, they're just like riffing for like 3 minutes.
Okay, but that's a whole other thing, and it goes on for way too long.
No.
So good. No.
You're staying in that theater seat. I don't care if you have to go to the bathroom.
I watched the whole thing
through the credits.
It's the only time I've stayed through all the credits in a Seagal movie.
No. I got halfway through and I had to skip to the end. Just to get it out of my queue. That went on for way too long.
You watched those.
It was the best part of the movie.
No, I don't think so.
It's just the dude from Transformers and the guy from Roseanne just riffing on each other. Like, oh yeah, I like thick girls. Like that kind of thing.
They just let them just say whatever for like 3 minutes.
Tom Arnold started talking about. I was like, what the hell am I listening to right now?
Some of it was tasteless. Yes, I agree.
It's completely crass and tasteless, but it's the movie. That's Seagal. That's Exit Wounds.
Well, and it was the most fun anyone had ever had on screen in a Seagal movie. And it was during the credits, but...
And it didn't have anything to do with Seagal.
And it didn't have anything to do with Seagal, that's right.
Nothing to do with Seagal, had barely anything to do with the movie. They do mention at the end of the movie that, they're going to work on... Anthony Anderson is going to come on to, Tom Arnold's TV show, like public access TV show that he has.
It's not public access. It seems to be like a real legitimate, like people recognize him on the street.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're the guy. It's basically
like,
what grinds my gears from Family Guy.
Well, it's like AM, like it has a name, like it's AM radio or something, but it's on television.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
I have one thing, pretty much the only thing, because like I said, I had a good time with this one, but it wasn't good and it wasn't bad. It was just kind of, like you said, it was just a movie. It was the most just a regular movie that I have seen from Steven Seagal, aside from Under Siege.
5 seconds, I'm just like, oh, this looks like a movie.
Yeah, and there had good comedic timing. Like it was okay. Like it was just a movie. It was fine. If it didn't have Steven Seagal in it, it would have been infinitely better. Well, yeah, but still. Anyway, the only problem that I have, the only problem worth mentioning, I guess, that I have.
Just one.
You talked about the police chief at the 1-5, I think it was, precinct when he got transferred. Was the what was the actress's name? Hang on, I gotta look it up now.
Are you talking about Jill Hennessy?
Is that who it is?
Or are you talking about
yes, Jill Hennessy. Jill Hennessy is the police chief or captain, whatever it would end up being. I don't know. At the precinct that he gets transferred to. She is like, she talks about how she has no patience for no nonsense cops, or she has no patience for cops like Seagal. and then proceeds to have all the patience in the world for him, even though he does exactly what she tells him not to do. They start to like build a little bit of a relationship for them, kind of like a little bit of back and forth. She's out to dinner on a date with a guy, and he interrupts the date, and then sits down and just eats the other dude's food.
No woman on the planet would just be okay.
Yeah. With this. Yeah, he just interrupts her date after her date gets done saying like no cop talk. We're here to enjoy each other's company, and then he interrupts them, sits down, and then eats the guy's food, and she's like, "Oh, interesting."
Message to all men: never do this. Doesn't work.
If Seagal's doing it, don't do it. Actually,
message to all women: if any man ever does this, call the police. Unless he is a cop, then just run.
Although, I can't even remember. I don't even think this is the first time he did it. I feel like there's some other movie where he sits down and eats someone else's food and makes a comment about it. Like,
it's in the Italian restaurant. That's also marked for death.
Yeah.
There was a lot of marked for death.
When he just beats up all the maitre d's for no reason.
Yeah, there was a lot of marked for death stuff in this one that made me think of that movie. That awful, awful movie. But anyway, the only other thing then is like after she's charmed by him, he meets up with her in a parking garage later on in the movie to talk about like how cops on her force are bad cops and need to be taken out, and they end up getting ambushed by those cops who then try to murder them, blah, 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 blah. He says, I don't remember, I have to look up the line. Oh, she drives them away, drives them out of the parking garage and like saves both of their asses. And then he says to her, I always said women are bad drivers. And then she says, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Like, what?
No, I fully agree. Every single interaction
he
and
saved
her
his life.
Is bad.
I just don't.
And then she just dies unceremoniously.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me. And then
she to a car crash, airbag doesn't go off, just smacks her head against the steering wheel and dies.
Yeah, again, and that's is the second, like, Seagal must really genuinely think that women just like can't drive, because also in On Deadly Ground, that's the one woman, she just dies trying to drive away. Like, Seagal doesn't even kill her. Like, if there's a woman
worst character
actually, I think 100% of the time a woman's no, that's not true. Hard to kill.
But they even had he crashed his Ram, his truck, and they had an extended shot of his airbag going off and his head plowing into the airbag. Like, they made sure to capture that, and then they also made sure to capture her airbag and her Range Rover not going off, her dying, and then they never mention her again. Like, they get to the end of the movie and there's no, in honor of her or anything. She's just not brought up ever again.
No funeral scene, nothing.
And she was one of the only characters that had it was interesting in even the slightest way, even though they written terribly. And then she just dies.
Yeah, no, again, I fully think that she is just completely wasted. Every single interaction they have is cringe-inducing. Like, it's 100% probably one of the worst parts of the movie.
We're talking about the writing and like just the weirdness of the writing here. This is based on a book, right?
Yes. Although it is, from what I saw, has basically nothing to do with the book.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Or technically based on a book, but I think it's like the book was by like an ex-cop or something, but I don't think like any of the plot.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think DMX was a .com billionaire in the book.
Was the book called Exit Wounds?
Yes, the book of the same name by John Westerman.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense, because this entire time I've been wondering why the hell this movie was called Exit Wounds, because it doesn't.
So that never comes up at all.
It doesn't make any sense.
So this is going back to the opening scene, which I have a couple things to say.
We learned so much in this opening scene.
A couple of fun factoids. This opening scene where the vice president is speaking and he's talking. So first of all, this guy shows up and I'm just looking at him, and admittedly, I don't look at pictures of like Beto O'Rourke that often, but I'm like, this guy kind of looks like Beto O'Rourke. Like, he just kind of has that like bred to be like a politician face. And he's talking about like gun deaths and how many children died of guns. So I'm like, this is straight up Beto O'Rourke, just 20 years before he was a thing. 15, I guess.
And I thought this movie, it's called Exit Wounds. The opening scene is about gun control. I immediately thought this is about guns and like gun trafficking.
So much where I thought the movie was going to be based on the name Exit Wounds, and the fact that like the first line of dialogue you hear is about like gun deaths. I thought it was going to relate to that, like the dangers of guns in like inner cities. That again, he saves his vice president. Other than like it gets him transferred, this does not factor at all into the rest of the story.
Nope.
No,
but
doesn't matter at all.
The fun little factor
they don't even talk about the vice president for the rest of the movie.
the fun little factor that I do want to share. Like I said, he just looked like the kind of like bred for politician face. He kind of looks like, that. I looked it up. The guy is literally a Kennedy. Like, not exaggerating. The actor that plays the vice president in this movie is like the son of JFK's
Christopher
sister.
Lawford.
Wow.
But
oh my God, his teeth.
Okay, that's the first thing Sarah said when we looked up a photo.
Look at this man's teeth.
Okay, here before you say more. He had like a very serious like substance abuse addiction for like 18 years.
Aww.
Oh,
that probably had some effect on it.
Yeah.
But basically, he struggled with like drugs and alcohol for a while, and then he became a motivational speaker and author and such about his struggles because like he was in the Kennedy family, so he can just like be that. And then like try to like kind of pivot into acting. He didn't have any major roles. But his full name, Christopher Kennedy Lawford. That he literally, he's the son of Peter Lawford and Patricia Kennedy Lawford, who is the sister of John F. Kennedy. Like, he's actually fairly closely related. He's a nephew.
Yeah, he's JFK's nephew.
So I looked at him, I'm like, this guy just like looks like a politician. And then I learned,
because he's got Kennedy blood in him.
He was literally like eugenically bred like a dog, like a show dog to be like a politician in America.
Yeah.
So that was just that was probably some of the most fun I had watching the movie, was like discovering that. It wasn't even the movie itself. It's learning, oh wait, this guy's actually Kennedy. That's funny.
Well, and okay, can we talk about some things that let's do something a little bit different. What did we like about this movie?
I just can't get over his teeth.
Nonstop.
The soundtrack is bangers nonstop.
Actually. It really is. Everything about it fits every piece of the movie. Unlike some of the past ones we've seen, it just works. Like it worked enough that I noticed it. And usually you don't really notice the soundtrack in a movie that you would classify as it was just a movie.
Yeah.
But it was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But you got Nas, you got DMX, you got Timbaland, you have Dragon, who plays DMX's brother in this movie, who's like a part of like DMX's like group at the time. It is so good. I would like legitimately like just listen to the soundtrack, like to enjoy it. And I think that's when I say like depending on what kind of mood I'm in, if I want a more fun movie than Under Siege, a good chunk of that is attributed to the soundtrack. Is that just like it makes the movie so much fun.
Yeah, and I mean I'm not like a huge. Okay, I'm not even gonna say I'm not even a huge. I'm just not even a hip hop fan. But I thought, as far as Steven Seagal movie soundtracks go, this was definitely the best. I think.
The by far the most common song, the No Sunshine song that keeps playing, that's just a good song.
Yeah. One weirdly specific thing that I really liked that I haven't seen done in a whole lot of movies, like the title card comes in like one letter at a time from different angles, like from different sides of the screen, and like the letters move really slowly and they come together like at the end of the vice president's monologue at the beginning, and for some reason I just found that like to be a really interesting artistic move I really liked.
Do you just enjoy
and I just don't see very often.
Just, like, the same way you like the Stranger Things like opening titles,
very early on.
Yeah, like I just find that really pleasing, the way it just slowly comes together and like okay, it's complete now. But yeah, I guess I do really it reminds me of the Stranger Things.
It comes together. Oh, yes,
title
it's complete.
card.
The title that makes no sense and has nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah, but at the end of the opening monologue, I thought it would have a lot to do with the movie. But it just turns out that first scene has basically nothing to do with the rest of the movie. Am I dumb or missed something? Like, who was attempting to kill the vice president?
Oh, okay. No, actually, that was the other thought that I had while watching this, because It is so weird. We did not talk about the big virus that happened recently when we were watching the movie about the virus that needs to quarantine the town. When we were watching, what was the last one? Why am I blanking on this?
The Patriot.
The Patriot. Oh yeah, because that title also has nothing to do with the movie. No, in this one, it is a...
Well, no, it's just that the Patriot wasn't Steven Seagal. The Patriot was
true.
the guy. Steven Seagal was...
Classic Steven Seagal.
There is at least like some connection there. There's like no connection here. But they say it was a militia group, like I'm pretty sure like a pro-gun militia group from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I said in Michigan with emphasis. It's in Detroit. Of course it's from Michigan. Like, that makes sense. But I'm watching, I'm like 3 years ago, a bunch of a militia from Michigan tried to kidnap the governor. Like, another just weirdly uncomfy, very prescient thing from, like, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, this movie, I'm not going to say predicted it, but as soon as they said that, I'm like, that's
weirdly
that's a thing.
relevant.
Okay, that's fun. Yeah, it's this militia group that appears to not very much care for this vice president. Does not factor in the movie at all. Because he just, like, kills all of them. He just, like, takes out the entire militia in that first scene. They don't factor in the movie at all.
Oh, he takes on a helicopter with a pistol.
Yes! When you talk about helicopters exploding movies, just with a handgun shoots the helicopter until the whole thing explodes.
He doesn't even, like, shoot the pilot and it, like, crashes and explodes. No, he just shoots at it and then it just explodes in the air.
He doesn't even shoot, like, the tail rotor or something. Just...
I had notes about this too, because that helicopter had a minigun or chain gun of something mounted on the side, and they were able to completely destroy every cop car that drove onto that bridge, kill every other cop that drove onto that bridge, all the Secret Service around the vice president. But Steven Seagal, well, he survived, absolutely no problem. In addition to that, though, he was shooting at the helicopter with a pistol, but it was his classic semi-automatic. I think it's a 1911 is the one that he prefers. It's what he has in every single movie. And if you go back to the timestamp, I don't have the timestamp up right now, but if you go back to that scene, he's shooting, like pulling the trigger one shot at a time, as you do with a semi-automatic pistol, but it plays the sound of a fully automatic, like, machine pistol.
Well, they do. It's funny because at one point, like, they cut to, he's, like, picking up one of the militia guys, like, guns. He picks up a machine pistol, but then it just goes back to he's using, like you said, the 1911.
Oh.
So he's supposed to have, like, a submachine gun in his hand at that point.
Yeah, but they just play the completely incorrect, obviously.
Because they're like,
it's
no,
not
he
even
picks
like,
up the gun. I don't care if he's not holding the gun. He picked up the gun, so we're going to play the sound effects.
It's not even like, oh, that gun wouldn't make that noise. It's that gun is being shot 1, 2, 3, and they're playing a noise that goes...
But also, the thing you have to keep in mind is just, like, the gun he's holding just changes with no continuity. He does not reload ever. Like, it's just a disaster.
There are a couple weird editing things here. Like, I noticed in a couple of places they use slow-mo to extend a shot by just, like, a second or two. In one scene, someone is drinking a cup of coffee, and in the scene they, like, take a sip of coffee and then, like, put it down, like he's holding the cup of coffee, like, in front of his chest. It's footage of him taking a sip of the cup of coffee, and then the footage is reversed until it's resting in front of his chest, and then they pause the footage, and then they end the scene. It's...
They did that
really weird.
What, in one of the first, like, 3 or 4 that we watched, I forget which one, that kind of happens with, like, the knife stab. Like, there's, like, a knife stab that just gets reversed to be a second knife stab.
Yeah, they do, like, a Tusken Raider Star Wars kind of thing.
They do sorry for the younger, they do they do, like, a boomerang.
Oh,
Instagram
yes, sorry.
Boomerang, that's what happens.
Do they do an Instagram boomerang? Invented by George Lucas in 1977.
But no, the opening scene, honestly, every single problem with it is true. It exists, but it's actually kind of fun. I don't know for the whole movie. I don't know editing details on the whole movie, but I can say I did read that they, like, specifically reshot and re-edited the opening to make it faster. So I think probably some weirdness editing on there, especially with, like, having just, like, the wrong gun continuity all the time is probably...
Now, I think these are things which, to a Steven Seagal audience, they wouldn't even know.
It doesn't,
like, they wouldn't...
Or it doesn't
matter. It doesn't matter.
They don't care.
Like, it doesn't... Well,
he
and
shoots
these
the
things don't
helicopter
really,
until
like...
it explodes. You're asking about details? You're asking about continuity?
Yeah, so, like, everything in the movie is told in, like, broad strokes. So none of the details matter, really.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, like, setting up the, future plot points. There are no Chekhov's guns.
Except the one
Chekhov
he's
has no
holding
guns
in
in this
temple.
movie. There's no, like, setup, payoff. If you pay attention, like, you can figure out what's going to happen next. Literally impossible. You can't do it. It's just not that kind of movie. Like, it's not trying to tell an intelligent viewer, like, what's going to come next. What?
Although he does handcuff Anthony Anderson to the grill of his car, and Anthony Anderson gets away by taking the grill off Seagal's car, and then when they meet up at the end, he goes, "Oh, I'm going to go get that grill for you." So that's a setup and a payoff.
Okay, yes.
Because
there's little funny lines. But when it comes to, like, the plot...
But everything Anthony Anderson does in this movie is great.
Yeah, he shines in this movie. Speaking... Okay, don't ask me how my brain got here, but I'll explain later. Okay, but one thing that really stuck out to me in this movie, it has nothing to do with the plot, has absolutely nothing to do with any of the themes. This is definitely is the most sexual Steven Seagal film so far.
Elaborate.
Okay,
what?
so...
Do we watch the same movie?
Yes, we did.
Did you get the unrated cut? I don't know what you're talking about.
No. There are like at least 4 topless women in this. And every other... Okay, but... No. But then, in at least every other scene which takes place in the... Like in the police station, takes place in the police station gym. All the men are shirtless and oiled.
In like a Top Gun. It's the most Top Gun of his movies so far.
It's like... But it was... Every time he has a conversation with someone in the police station, there's at least one guy in the background who's just like very muscly and greased and flexing. Like that. I don't know why that is.
I
but
mean,
it
much
struck
like
me
Top
as
Gun,
strange,
it'd be a
and I
lot
wrote it
better
down.
if they played Take My Breath Away like 4 times in like one scene in like the span of 2 minutes. That'd make a much more fun movie.
But I don't know why that was. I don't think it has anything to do with the movie, but it was just like a weird pattern that I noticed in this one.
I kind of get what you're saying. I wouldn't necessarily go so far as to say it's like the most sexual Steven Seagal movie thus far.
Okay.
Because there is one where like literally he is like gunned down while having sex with his wife. Like
yeah.
Because he again this like does like other than in the police precinct, like, you know, the topless dudes, they're in the same scene as Seagal. Of course, like they'll be like shirtless and glistening and like tasing each other, and then they're like, oh, we're gonna tase you now, and he is like fully like, again, in every scene, whether heterosexual sex with his wife or like homoerotic, like, you know, male initiation rituals in the police force, he's fully clothed while everybody else is naked. Like, that's consistent.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the thing, is whenever they tase him, I'm like, that's not even as much of a... You're tasing him through like 4 layers. Like, that's not as much of a challenge for him as it is for the last dude.
No.
But
I just thought it was more consistent. I guess I should say it's like more consistently sexual. Like with the sexuality as it's been experienced in the previous films, like you have a moment or two.
That's fair.
That are like, this is a sex scene. Okay, we move away from the sex scene in the next.
So I wouldn't say like sexual. I'd say like vaguely erotic, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay, this is like, there's this erotic background to a lot of what's going on in the movie.
Also, outside the police precinct, you have the DMX and Anthony Anderson run a strip club, and so you do have like an extended scene where Anthony Anderson's like, yeah, smush them on the glass, put the green paint on.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That was interesting. Anthony, he's having fun. Again, like you said, they're having fun. Oh, actually, speaking of, do you want to know an interesting, fun, behind-the-scenes interaction that I think kind of sums up Seagal very well?
Sure, go for it.
Like an old man, let me unlock my fire tablets. So the fun kind of where it seems like they're trying to let an actor have fun on set. So allegedly, Michael Jai White claimed that he has this fight scene with Seagal, which is towards the end of the movie. It's not the last scene; it's like towards the end. But it was planned. It was like the last scene, like shot with Seagal in it. It was like the last filming day with Seagal. And he's kind of like, why? And the director says that they planned it, and they're like, so if you're just acting and you hurt Seagal, like, that's okay. We can wrap. Like, it's not going to impact filming. If he got hurt while you were doing your fight scene, it's not a big deal. Because I guess just Seagal is just such a jerk. Everybody hates him. Like, the director's like, yeah, let's set it up so we have Michael Jai White, like one of the greatest movie martial artists, against Seagal. And just let that happen. But they basically, like, he didn't end up getting hurt from it, but they like try to set it up in that way, and then pair that with another fun fact. So another one. So martial artist Stephen Quadros, who worked on the film, he's one of the stuntmen on the film. He had heard that Seagal had a history of abusing stuntmen. So something that he does often, that apparently that Seagal would just do, like on set all the time, because he's the star and can get away with it, he would just like go up and just like kick the stuntman in the nards. Like, no warning. He wouldn't start a fight or anything. He would just go up and just like cup check them by just like kicking them in the nuts. And that apparently this, like, he literally put people in the hospital doing this. Like, he just like,
why would anyone work with this man?
Okay, so I can't answer that question. I can't answer why anybody would work with them. But this guy describes how he's on set and he's meeting Seagal and he's like, I don't have a cup on. So he's like, the whole time they're talking, he's like kind of like turning his like crotch away from Seagal so he can't get kicked in the nuts randomly. And then Seagal would like square up, and then he would kind of like turn, and then Seagal would like square up on him. And he tried to like put him in like wrist locks or something. It's weird. He's just like trying to square up on the guy. And so it's just because this is like 11 movies in, he knows this is the thing. That's like Seagal will just try to kick you in the nuts when you're not suspecting. So Seagal's like, ooh, okay, you're good. Walks off. And I think those two behind the scenes interactions just like perfectly. Oh, I forgot to mention. But dang, I completely messed up the telling of this because I forgot one detail from the first one.
Oh no.
Have fun editing this. So Michael Jai White claimed that in the fight with Seagal, that he was basically implied, like, you can hurt this guy, it's totally cool, it's totally fine. And Seagal could kind of like sense that, like when they go to do their fight, Seagal could tell like Michael Jai White looks like he got that, dog in him. He looks like he's ready to actually hurt me. So he just like, he was like hesitant, like he did, like normally it's like, okay, and set and fight, but he just didn't want to engage. So he's like reserved. He's like not engaged in the fight scene as much as he should be because he's worried Michael Jai White is actually going to hurt him. So you pair that with the fun fact that he just like randomly cup check stuntman, and it really explains Seagal a lot to me. I didn't need this guy explain more. I already know like exactly what this guy's like. I didn't really need this explanation, but it gives a good way to summarize it. That Seagal thinks of himself as a tough man, but his idea of being a tough guy is just going up to people who are better at martial arts and being tough than you are and just kicking them in the nuts when they're not expecting it, like you're Bobby Hill. He just walks up, that's my purse, I don't know you, and kicks him in the nuts. And that when they're actually like, when he's never put into a situation where he could actually be hurt. He can just kick dudes in the nuts so hard they go to the hospital and be fine, not get in trouble. And because he's the star and because they need him to just like, nobody likes him, but they need him to finish the movie so he can't actually get hurt. That they put him in a situation, hey, Michael Jai White could you up right now if he wanted to. And Seagal wusses out instantly. Like folds like a napkin. Like is not up to it. So his idea of a tough guy is just going up and kicking actual tough dudes in the nuts. Knowing, hey, I can't get in trouble because I'm in charge. Hey, teacher. And as soon as you put him...
How'd that go again?
I can't get in trouble. Actually, I'm the star of the movie, so you can't hurt me, or I'm gonna tell the director on you. And that's all. That's how he's tough. That's his, and he's just able to get away with it for like decades. So that's just what he does. I mean,
wasn't one of the movies that I think it was Under Siege? Sometime in his earlier career, I remember reading somewhere that he was like afraid of water. Like they were trying to get him out on a boat and he wouldn't go out on the boat because he was freaking out because he didn't like being out on open water.
That sounds right, but he must have gotten over it by this time because going off of another IMDb fun fact, that's where I'm just shout out to IMDb. Tom
just all loops back in and he likes to think of himself as being a big tough guy, but he's really a wuss.
Oh, but okay, so this Tom Arnold claimed that Steven Seagal fell into the water while filming a scene on his character's houseboats. So Seagal had opted to shoot the scene without rehearsal and mistakenly exited through the wrong door and just like walked out the door and fell in the water.
Oh God! If only we got that blooper.
I mean, maybe I'll buy.
I want a blooper reel in a Seagal movie. Where's the blooper reel?
I mean, to be fair, have we really looked for this at all? Like,
no.
No,
we need to check.
Not at all. I don't need to look for extra Seagal content.
No. Also, DMX did not like working with Seagal. He described him as a kid. They would later work on one movie together again in 2019, but I think based on what I read, they don't appear together in a scene on that movie.
Okay.
But yeah, just reading about the fact, like reading about his interaction with the stuntman, with him like trying to kick this dude in the nuts, and also reading then about like when Michael Jai White gets his turn and Steven Seagal wusses out, that just kind of brought me some joy, and it really just that's Seagal right there. That's what he is. That's his idea of being tough.
We should point out that we just learned, well, we kind of knew it was coming, but the news broke that Seagal plans to open up a martial arts studio in Moscow to teach Russian soldiers.
Well, no, to teach young people
with
who
the
could
intention
potentially one day be soldiers.
That's right, and it's not just to teach, it's with the intention of teaching. Really, it's the intention of stealing their money. Just so we're all on the same page. We're not under any kind of
who's David?
Assumptions that he is We gotta wrap this up.
Okay, so characters.
There's gonna be a lot of editing to do with this one, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you could just cut a lot of this out.
So DMX, great. Isaiah Washington, fantastic. Anthony Anderson, great. Michael Jai White, oh my god, my heart and soul, I love you. Would do so much better before and after this. Tom Arnold, surprisingly fun in this movie. Sure, he was there.
And he was into it.
He was into it. And then
he was there for a good time.
The last one, Eva Mendes, appearing very shortly towards the end.
Yeah, she has like 2 lines.
No. I mean, yes, you're right. But she doesn't even, because then you learn... I don't know why I'm so excited about all the behind-the-scenes drama.
Oh, no, I did hear about this.
That her voice was dubbed over by just some random actress that's not credited.
Wait, really?
That Eva Mendes shows up, and everything she says is somebody else delivering her lines, because the producers felt that she did not sound, quote, intelligent enough.
Are you serious?
Which I do have to give Eva Mendes so much credit for this. It's so funny. Eva Mendes, first of all, called it a terrible movie. Yas Queen, slay. She said that they didn't tell her. She just like showed up to the premiere and she starts talking and she's like, "That's not my voice." And as a guest on the Daily Show, she said a Steven Seagal film, and I didn't sound intelligent enough. And I think that's just a great. that's a pretty great burn on the movie. So I think she comes out on top here.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I just kind of blasted right through the actors, Hollywood actors. Where are they, and where are they going now after this? What do they know? Let's ask questions. Any other thoughts on the actors in this movie?
I'm trying to find like anyone connected with this movie
in the Super Mario
who
Brothers
did
movie.
anything cool.
Well, DMX was actually in the Super Mario Brothers movie before this. Did you know that?
What?
No. You just got
zapped.
Boom, boom.
The director of this movie was also the director of photography for Speed.
Oh, nice.
So that was cool.
I could be watching Speed.
Oh man, if we did this
for like Keanu Reeves.
Hey
everybody, welcome to Aaron and Hans and Zach's Excellent Adventure, the Keanu Reeves Fancast. This episode we're talking about Speed.
We would get to watch so many good movies,
but also some less great ones. But I think that'd be a nice like mix.
Also some less great ones.
I would be.
But
so
I'm just looking at everyone who worked on this movie.
They would be so, even the worst would be so far superior to what we've had to deal with over the past 11 weeks.
True.
Oh my gosh, nothing good, huh?
So this doesn't have the typical like. This doesn't have the Steven Seagal experience. Although after this movie, they'd go on and star in this like commercial and critical hit that everybody loves and remembers them for now.
The cinema, at least behind the scenes, I can't really find anybody who went on to do something incredible. Like you don't have which movie was it where the fight choreographer did that movie?
We're still waiting on that apology.
Quit for a while.
It was Under Siege.
And then it was Under Siege. Yeah, did Under Siege, quit for a while, went back, and then did the fight choreography for The Matrix.
So waiting on that apology, Hans.
What?
When you
apology?
implied the stunt or fight choreographer on Under Siege was bad at his job, and he literally did like The Matrix 4 years after that. Still waiting on that apology.
I think I apologized in that episode.
Revisionist history there. I will say, so you mentioned there are like 5 producers. I think probably the one that does bear mentioning is Joel Silver. He's produced like so many, just like too many to list movies. But the fun fact about him that I appreciate is that the character of Les Grossman, played by Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder, he's like a parody. He's like based on Joel Silver, who produced this movie. Like Tom Cruise in the fat suit, like just like crushing cans of Diet Cola and like, dancing like this music and like cursing out dudes on the phone. That's somehow allegedly, inspired by one of the producers on this movie. So there you go, Joel Silver. Although this does actually remind me of something I forgot to talk about earlier, how this kind of, when I was mentioning how this is the most just like good, straightforward just movie, like if you're going to watch a Seagal movie and you're just like a dude sitting on the couch and you want to watch Seagal, like this or Under Siege, and how it's very different. On this podcast, we talk about like the weird trappings of like an almost like art cinema being forced into like a weirdly not action filled direct to video action film that we saw with the last movie. that I kind of was weirdly positive on The Patriot, despite it not actually being that good in the end. And I'm also weirdly positive on Exit Wounds, despite it not being very good in the end. Like these two I've actually somewhat enjoyed, but for very different reasons. Like Exit Wounds almost is the anti-Patriots. I'm just thinking about it now because that's the one that we're literally like, oh, you have the DP for like the Fast and the Furious series and this Oscar-winning like director. Like so much talent behind the scenes, and you can kind of feel that in the movie. And then the actors are just kind of eh. That's when you have like a really just like a fun cast, not like box office draws. You don't have like the Brad Pitts and the George Clooners, but like you have like
people that are
George
fun to watch.
Clooner.
Now you have like some fun people on scene. There is no higher art meaning to this movie. There is no even like thing trying to struggle to escape from it. It just like has kind of nothing. It's like weightless. It's like a saltine cracker of a movie. And then also just really no one of note like behind the scenes either.
Well, okay, I found the best example I can find, and I don't want to diminish this man's career. He's actually done some pretty cool stuff, and that's what I'm about to mention. Tim Baraball. He was the pyrotechnician for this movie, and he went on to be the special effects coordinator for The Expanse, the TV show The Expanse, which is actually pretty good.
Yep.
It has some like interesting special effects. He also,
to be fair,
he was the pyrotechnician on the Boondock Saints.
To be fair, as the pyrotechnician on this movie, he I think contributed to it a great deal, as we touched on. Like he could explode a helicopter with a handgun. This has happened before. This is another Seagal movie where if you just kind of like sideswipe a car and like knock off its like driver's side mirror, the car is going to just explode into a ball of fire. So I'd say good job. I liked his contribution here.
The best I can do here. I'm sorry.
I feel like I should clarify for anyone listening, like, not naming names, but somebody who's not Hans or Zach showed up, I believe, almost 2 hours late to this recording. So maybe if this episode feels a little more unstructured, maybe a little sillier, maybe a little, maybe if the pacing on this episode is weird compared to the last ones, there are real world reasons for that. I feel like we kind of... I was chomping at the bit to talk about this movie. We didn't get to talk about it last week. We talked about it this week, and then I feel like, I don't know, we almost... It was a little silly, goofy mood on the episode this week.
I don't know. I actually discovered that I had a lot more to say about this movie than I thought. Oh, I also want to say once again, Steven Seagal's stunt double is not credited in this movie.
Which is interesting, going back to my Amazon Fire tablet of fun facts from IMDb. Oh, I just realized IMDb is also owned by Amazon. This is not a sponsored... Okay. Just bleep out the name of the website and tablet. No, you shouldn't bleep out the website. We should cite our sources. But bleep out the tablet I'm using. I don't want you to think I'm in the pocket of Big Bezos.
Nobody thinks you're in the pocket of Big Bezos. Those things are so dirt cheap.
Joseph Billinger served as a stunt double Steven Seagal. So it was interesting that he said he was uncredited because he said in an interview that Seagal demanded that he was cast in this movie as his double. He said this guy is the only one who can be my double, and that Seagal was ready to shut down the movie if this guy was not cast as his double. And then he's just uncredited in the final movie. It's again a very weird kind of summation of Seagal's
ego,
personhood.
Did Seagal witness him committing a crime and just held it over him forever, or
I mean, maybe because this is the one dude, okay, every movie I get to cup check this guy, and he just puts up with it. So it's the one stunt double who's willing to just get kicked in the nards, or at least knows to wear the cup when he shows up on shoot.
Yeah. Who?
Seagal's big comeback. He comes back. He did pretty well. Got some money. It's not the career-saving comeback that he needed.
Oh, whoa.
Yes.
Okay, the editor for this movie was also the editor for... Well, he was the editor for The Patriot with Steven Seagal. And Stargate. And... Well, and also Street Fighter, The Legend of Chun-Li, but I don't really care about that. And he was an assistant editor on Die Hard and The Bourne Ultimatum and Iron Man.
Oh, okay.
And Team America World Police.
Oh, dang.
And Basic Instinct.
Okay.
And Total Recall. So he has his hands in a lot of things. Derek Bretchen. Good work, Derek.
Good work, Derek. Yeah, we about ready to wrap this up?
I think we're ready to wrap it up. Any final quotes or favorite
Seagal
moments?
lost nearly 2 cents to appear in this film. Yeah, like Han said earlier, I think, one of my magnet. That's my favorite Seagal quote from this movie. And just the entire riffing that Tom Arnold and Anthony Anderson do, like during the credits.
Oh,
Except the part about every part except
that was pretty uncomfortable. That made me uncomfortable.
But the rest was pretty gold. You should give it a watch.
You got a favorite part or favorite quote, Hans?
I mean, it
You
was
literally
fun.
early in this episode said best line of the movie and then quoted a line.
yeah, I already gave it. That's all I got. There wasn't anything else that really stood out as fantastic to me. It was just a movie. I was having a good time watching it, thinking back about my like trying to pull details from it. I'm only getting anger. So
Really? I was weirdly positive. The problem is there's like movies that I walk away from angry, and then there's movies that I say I'm really positive on, and they both have like exactly the same number of stars. Like those are both 2-star movies. This is a 2-star that I'm like, okay.
I don't have a favorite quote, but I do have a favorite moment.
That counts.
I can't remember which character it was, but he's like hiding behind a pile of like sacks of like detergent or something in this warehouse, and he has a shotgun, and he like takes the strap off the shotgun and ties it to the trigger, and he like throws the shotgun in the air and pulls on the strap so that the shotgun.
That's DMX.
yeah,
That's DMX who does that. That was cool.
Okay, I can't believe we're gonna talk about that. It's so funny. It's so ridiculous, and the fact that he does it multiple times and it works more than once.
It was awesome.
Yeah, they're right. That he just throws it up and pulls on the strap and just like takes out like 3 dudes at 3 different times.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's such
it was
funny...
cool.
No,
that was rad.
Yeah,
but that's my favorite moment. Yep.
Cool. So next one will be Ticker.
Next will be Ticker.
Ticker, also from 2001, November 2001.
I don't want to spoil anything. I watched Ticker already.
Really?
Has everybody else watched Ticker?
No, not yet.
Okay, Ticker almost broke me.
Okay.
Ticker almost broke me.
All right. Wait. Tom Sizemore, Dennis Hopper, Ice-T. What? Interesting.
Yeah.
Ice-T.
And Nas. Like, okay, another hip hop
Yeah.
influence. Okay. Budget. Okay. I do want to point out though, budget for this movie that we just spent the last hour or so discussing was I think around like 30 million or so. Budget for this one, 600,000.
But it still has some big names.
That had big names and had a limited release. It looks like.
Yeah.
Oof, but oh boy,
Enough to get into the Oscar nominations,
Ooh, this Wikipedia page is a stub though. Okay, so join us next week. Same Seagal time, same Seagal place for Ticker. That
Ticker.
in a in an injured in a depressed America, November of 2001, exactly what we need to bring us out of the dumps. The latest Seagal film to really lift our spirits and rally the
I
national
didn't
pride.
think about that. Oh gosh.
This probably
look forward
this
to
has
that,
to be
everybody.
the last Seagal film like produced pre 9/11. So we'll kind of see if there's a shift from, because you do have a certain kind of like late 90s, early 2000s like filmmaking that just disappears. Just
because that's something I really looked forward to. How did the events of 9/11 affect Seagal's filmography?
I mean,
Okay.
I'm curious, so we'll see. All right.
I guess I'm curious. See you next time.
Hear us next time.
Ending on a really sour note.
Yeah, you know how we try to end the episodes with like some kind of zinger sometimes, like a fun little joke. This one's just
this is just a bummer.
Hey, 9/11 happened. Did you know that?
It's awful.
All right. You'll hear us next time at Steven Seagal.
Bye.
Bye. Love you.
I don't.
That means one of us has to die.
You just got zacked. Boom, boom, boom.